I'd like to thank the committee staff once again for their hard work, and I would like to accept the committee amendments and accept them as author amendments. I'm pleased to present SB 1148, which will help working families across California deal with college affordability. Education costs in California and across the nation have skyrocketed in recent years. According to PPIC, in-state tuition of both UC and CSU has more than tripled over the past 20 years. From 2004 to 2013, the average in-state tuition paid by students jumped from around $4,000 to $9,000. The average annual in-state college tuition in California was $13,492 for fiscal year 2014-15 academic year. These increases are a source of concern for Californians who fear they may be priced out of post-secondary education or forced to incur more and more debt in order to complete their degrees, understanding that the national debt of students in the United States is approaching $3 trillion. As more students worry about rising costs and the impact of their loans will have once they leave school, pressure on both students and their families to secure financing for education is escalating. Even more worrying is that these increased costs disproportionately affect middle and low-income families. SB 1148, as amended, will allow individuals making below $80,000 or joint filers making below $160,000 to claim a deduction of up to $4,000 or $2,000 respectively for payments made towards tuition and qualified education expenses as defined by federal law. SB 1148 will bring the tax code into conformity with federal law with regard to these very important deductions. SB 1148 will also contain a 5-year sunset so that we can review and make sure this program is truly helping our students and parents. This bill may not solve all of our problems with making college affordable for more families, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. I thank you very much for your consideration and respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you kindly, Senator. Those in support? Opposition? Senator Morlock. Oh, here comes, oh, here we go. Yeah, the tax reform people are coming back again. No. Except I am inclusive and all groups I work with, they all have value in the system, but I don't know them well.
Mr. Chair, members, Samantha Corbin, California Tax Reform Association, unfortunately in opposition to this measure as well. Studies have shown that the federal tax credit on tuition only rewards those who would otherwise be paying for college and going in the first place. There's actually a very negligible impact on incentivizing students going to college. They were unsuccessfully proposed for elimination by the Obama administration because of this. So it's not sensible tax policy for the state to conform to these credits in light of their failure to have a beneficial impact on anyone going to college in the first place. We would argue that the revenue loss from this bill would be much better used in programs that improve access, programs like Cal Grant B, which pays some of the costs of living for students who've already received tuition waivers but are otherwise going into debt regardless. For those reasons, we oppose the measure.
Can I ask you a question? Because you know, if you're really rich, the cost of tuition doesn't really matter. If you're really poor, there's a tremendous amount of programs that can help you. The challenge that we had when I served on the boards of higher education for California was always these folks in the middle that maybe can do it, but man, it's tough. Man, it's tough. And one of the challenges you're facing in government, at least from my point of view, is that those folks are feeling that nobody ever cares about them. Speaker Perez was doing this program for middle-class scholarships. There's been some efforts afoot, but we have been so attentive, and in a lot of ways, in brilliant ways. The increases in tuition to be able to then pay for people of less fortunate means and the like. But what you're saying here is you're given, so when someone fills out their form and they're paying those huge bills and they're borrowing and they're squeaking by and they get a couple of bucks from government, maybe isn't it just sending them a message that this is something that we're trying to help them out a little bit? I just wanted to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Sure. I think my response to that would be we would argue that a direct expenditure program would be more appropriate. So there's certainly other ways to provide students in that kind of middle income bracket with other ways to, you know, whether it's a program or a reduction in actual costs of attending college in the first place at state colleges. Certainly there's other ways that we could prioritize in the budget to make college more affordable.
The problem with all these programs is that you gotta have a government head to think about them. You gotta fill out the forms. You gotta apply. You gotta talk to somebody. Checking a box when you're filling out your tax return is a pretty simple thing in terms of just the experience of the person who's the parent or whoever it is who's going to paying for the tuition. And these programs are such that I'll get you in a second, are so hard to manage on a personal level. I mean, you pull your hair out trying to fill out all these forms and what to do and do what I qualify, and then you get experts to get hired that pay as a consultant to say what you can apply for and what you can't apply for. And we create this whole political industrial complex of crap, that's a defined term in the law, of stuff that you see in order to be practical in solving problems. This is a way where you get a benefit and you can feel it and see it at a time when you're feeling oppressed by your government and paying your taxes. It probably is a pretty good time to be able to give somebody a little bit of relief. I just want to hear your thoughts, and Senator Bell has something on that as a question. And Senator Pavley, and Senator Morlock.
Anyone else?
Senator Hernandez.
Let us speak.
Go ahead, just real quickly, what your thoughts are on that, because it is a practical thing. I'm so frustrated about governments. What is it like to be somebody in California and interface with your government? And what we want to do is to make that the most positive, easy experience you can possibly have. And another form does not make life easier.
I would agree that another form does not make life easier. I would argue that reducing the cost of state colleges would certainly make a lot of people's lives easier. Tuition at UC, state colleges continues to rise. Students struggle to continue to be able to afford that at a variety of income ranges. Again, prioritizing through the budget process to ensure that those costs went down significantly would benefit all students and wouldn't require any paperwork from them.
I'm going to, Senator Bell, Senator Pavley, is it okay? Put you up last, sir, even though you had word first. Is that okay? That's fine. Okay, thank you, sir. Senator Bell, Senator Pavley, and Senator. Why?
When I look at this, I generally reacted favorably to it, given the fact that we're setting some thresholds. I think that's a good idea. But the other part of it was a lot of families are trying to invest, Mr. Chairman, in college saving plans, and even if they can put just a little bit of money into the college savings plans, that would help in the end result in terms of not having a situation where somebody that's 18 and accepted to a college and then faced with the need to finance their education, and then they're forced to go out and borrow money. So I think our strategy should be the combination of all these things to eliminate debt due to college. Okay, debt due to college is a bad thing. And so any kind of strategy, kind of a combination, and each family is going to have a different strategy for their family to have their children go to college. You know, everybody's different. So we need to have this lowering the total amount of student debt in California as a strategy, and it could be, this is part of it. There's the incentives for the, what is it, the 529 tax exempt savings. Yeah, incentives for that, making sure we have robust Cal grants, and then the other one would be to keep tuition down as much as we can by our direct money that we put into college. You know, so we don't want tuition to keep rising because it's becoming an exclusionary thing as opposed to what we need is, what is it, Senator Hernandez and others are trying to encourage healthcare workers and the workforce development programs that we need for all kinds of other tech professions in science and math and so forth to keep our economy going. So I think we're looking at a shortage of 1 million college graduates in California. So we need this, maybe we can all come together on some kind of fiscal strategy to eliminate this debt that burdens that group of families that don't have the opportunity to go to college because of the cost. And that was the kind of family I had with my 9 brothers and sisters, you know. So I'm very sensitive to this particular issue. So thank you, Senator
Thank you.
Stone, for
And
working
just
on this.
before I go on to Senator Pavlik, in that regard, because I really think your point's well taken about the larger discussion. I just was in meetings yesterday on the whole issue of commercialization of IP and intellectual property coming out of the universities. Columbia raises $150 million a year. UCLA just had a $1.2 billion sale where their interests was, and Gene Block, the chancellor there, took the $1.2 billion in order to give it to scholarships for less fortunate folks. So here's another income stream of being creative and innovative and California-esque, if you will, of coming up with ways holistically to look at this issue. I just am impressed because when you're sitting there paying your taxes, you know, and you had all these bills and you got no money because you spent all your money in tuition, the fact that government is there and you got a box you can check off and get a little relief from it, to me, is a positive thing you can easily do for folks who are paying tuition for their kids. Senator Pavlik.
Yes, thank you. This is, thank you for carrying this bill, Senator Stone. This is something that's really important in regards to recruiting teachers into the classroom.
Interesting.
I'm carrying a bill, Senate Bill 62. For those of you who don't know, it's very frustrating for the middle class, growing sort of anger. Half the students at CSUs get a full ride, can go up to 6 years. But let's say you're trying to attract people into the teaching profession. Many of them come from the middle class. What you may not realize, the amount of people going into teaching has dropped by 75% in the teacher credentialing programs at the CSU system. And one of the major overriding reasons is the student loan debt. The average teacher coming through, and you have to go to college 5 years, the average teacher has student loan debt of over $22,000, some as high as 40, it depends. They will counsel you out of being a teacher.
Really?
Because let's say you have a student loan of 30 or something thousand, you're going to be paying $700 to $800 a month every month for 20 years.
Huh.
So I'm attempting to reinstitute, and it's another tool in the toolbox, a program that we used to have in the state of California called APPLE. It's a loan assumption program in exchange for teaching 5 years in a disadvantaged school or in a hard-to-fill subject area. You may not realize special education teachers, over half of them now have to have their credentials waived. They've never gone through student teaching. They're not fully credentialed. And we're getting more and more, whether it's science and math or special ed, across all different school districts. Teachers' beginning salary is about $42,000 a year. You can't afford to have that.
$700.
You cannot afford that. And it has ripple effect all over the place.
Even if you have a mustard sandwich.
They're paying off their student loans, so they're living at home, fine. So the loan assumption programs, forgiveness programs, we used to spend in the state up through 2012, $80 million a year on these loan assumption programs. All of that was gotten rid of, and we're trying to reinstitute it. But in the teaching profession specifically, this is one of the reasons why middle-class kids are not thinking about teachers. Being teachers, they can't afford to.
Interesting. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last year, we had a massive federal to California tax conformity bill by Assemblyman Ting. We even joked about reading could you explain one of the lines in this massive bill? So I was sort of surprised that this wasn't caught in that net. But if this bill hasn't been moved, I'll be happy to move it.
Very good. Bill's been moved. Anything further, Senator?
Thank you very much, members, for all your thoughtful comments. I appreciate some of the ideas that have been mentioned, and certainly recruiting teachers is very important. This bill obviously doesn't affect the wealthy. They can afford to go to school, and the working poor have scholarships that get them to school. It's the middle class that needs some help, and this is a nice message sent by the state of California that we do value them and we want them to go to school, and we want to help. I urge
Thank you
your
so much, Senator. Appreciate it very much. Secretary, call the roll.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. The motion. This is due pass as amended to appropriations, correct, sir? To pass as amended to appropriations by Senator Morlock. Okay, Secretary call the roll.
Hertzberg.
Aye.
Hertzberg, aye. Wynn. Bell.
Aye.
Bell, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Laura. Morlock. Morlock, aye. Pavley. Pavley, aye. 5-0.
5-0, hold it open for
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Laura.
Chairman,
Thank you
members.
so very much.